All right, good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's Planning Commission meeting. Get started in just a moment. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. There are restrooms out in the hallway. You can find for yourself. I think this is also being broadcast on Facebook Live, so if you happen to step out and you're interested in an upcoming case, you can tune in that way. Our cases will be presented to us one at a time by city staff. We'll have an opportunity to ask them questions before we invite the applicant up for any further details or questions from the commission. Then we'll open up the public hearing, so if you're here today from the public, you'll have an opportunity to speak on each case. We'll then ask the applicant if there's any response to the public hearing. We'll ask any final questions from the commission and then have deliberation and make a decision before we move on to our next case. Before we get going with our first case, commissioners, any conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest for today? Lots of shaking heads. Okay, then let's get started with 15 Ionia Ave Southwest.
The first item on the agenda is a request from Grand Vin, and they are requesting approval to establish a new wine shop with on-premises tasting. The proposal is intended to be established at 15 Ionia Southwest in the City Center Zone District on Ionia, just south of Fulton. It's a multi-story building in an area with many bars and restaurants, and it's right next door to Van Andel Arena. This is a view of Ionia, and this is a view of the building, and I believe the space that the shop will occupy is this is the cafe that's shown in the picture, the coffee shop. So this is before you today because the sale of alcohol for off-site consumption, as well as the on-site tasting, does require special land use approval. The storefront is approximately 600 square feet, and as you can see, it has windows all across the front. There's no on-site parking. However, there is no parking required downtown. It is in the Hartside Historic District, so any exterior changes would require Historic Preservation Commission approval. I don't believe that there are any significant exterior changes proposed, however. This is the floor plan. The applicant intends to sell only wine and a limited selection of locally made specialty grocery items. There'll be no sale of liquor or distilled spirits. It's a wine shop, so and with their liquor license from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, they would only be able to sell wine and beer. They do, as you can see on the floor plan, and because it is a wine shop, there is display of the items around the store. There will also be an area at the window, which is where the tasting area is proposed. And I'll defer to the applicant to talk about what tasting might entail and what they're legally allowed to do. The store will be open from about 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. The applicant has indicated possible extended hours during weekends and holidays, Art Prize, and other key dates, but they don't ever intend to operate past 10 p.m. In the draft resolution, I left a blank for the closing time, so the Planning Commission will want to consider the appropriate closing time. The proposal does include security features like motion security alarms and security cameras connected to a DVR. And there will be at least 2 employees working at closing time. employees will be trained in all the relevant provisions of alcohol sales and the requirement and state requirements. Based on all the information provided, the proposal does appear to meet all the requirements of the SEPTED ordinance, crime prevention through environmental design, which is applicable to establishments selling alcohol. Relative to other packaged alcohol sales in the vicinity, I could not find any store that was devoted to alcohol sales or was a grocery that had alcohol. I will admit I could have overlooked something, but I don't believe that there's anything in the immediate vicinity. And I do know that with COVID, there has been more sale of alcohol to go from establishments that might otherwise not usually do that. Relative to neighborhood outreach, the applicant did provide a summary of neighborhood outreach efforts, which is included in the packet, and there was quite a few letters of support for the new store. So in sum, we're looking at the establishment of a wine shop, the sale of, without any sale of distilled spirits, open no later than 10, usually by 8. The Planning Commission should consider the appropriateness of this type of use in this particular location. Do you have any questions for me before I turn it over to the applicant?
Thanks, Elizabeth. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Elizabeth, I see that, I think Ionia is on the bottom of the screen, if I'm reading the plan correctly. It looks like it says bar height window display. What, can you?
I'll defer to the applicant to talk about the details there.
Thanks.
All right, I'll invite the applicant up then if there's other details you'd like to share with us.
Hello, I am Tom Grimm, and this is my wife, Kim Grimm, and we are the owners of the hopefully potential wine shop, Grand Vin, on 15 Ionia. Happy to answer any questions. We can start off with the bar height window display here that you've asked about. So the space was previously a coffee shop, and so this bar is existing. We are going to use this for our tastings. And per the MLCC, we will be allowed to pour free 2-ounce tastes to patrons, not exceeding 3 tastes in a 24-hour period. We're going to use this as a way to really showcase new and exciting wines, especially since our focus is going to be on smaller production wineries and smaller production regions. We find that the best way to get people excited about these and to get you to take these home with you is to try something that maybe you wouldn't gravitate to before. So it's our way to showcase things that we're excited about and things that maybe you haven't tried before.
Any questions for the applicants? Did that answer your question? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We'll do the public hearing and have you back up if there's other questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll open up the public hearing. If you're here today on this case at 15 Ionia Ave Southwest, please come forward, state your name, and share your brief thoughts with us. All right. I'll close the public hearing and ask commissioners if they have any other questions or concerns about this application. It's pretty straightforward.
I guess the only question I have is
Mike.
on the issue of the closing time. And maybe we need to ask the applicant, but they've said no later than 10. But do we want to give them some leeway and perhaps make that 11?
Or 12.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the applicant wants, but it would be, if they've got some input they'd like to share with us on that, I would like to hear.
It's pretty common that applicants will request one thing and we'll actually give them more than that, just so that you don't have to come back in 2 months after you've operated.
Excellent. We feel very comfortable and very confident saying that we will not be open past 10 p.m. As someone who has left the service industry during this whole ordeal, and as someone who has a 7-month-old at home, we do not want to be open past 10 p.m.
Okay, then we can stick with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? Okay. All right, yeah, it seems like a good fit here.
I can make a motion.
All right, thanks.
All right. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use and site plan review request from Grand Vin LLC, Thomas Grimm, for approval to establish a new wine shop with on-premises tasting located at 15 Ionia Avenue Southwest for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master planning and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will continue to provide a mix of uses in the business district and enhance the stability of the business district. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of section 5.12.08.e because the building already complies with the requirements of the TNCC zone district, and no site changes are proposed or necessary. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment, because the proposed use will support the desired mixed-use character of the neighborhood, and per correspondence in our testimony, the proposed use will be an asset to the neighborhood, per correspondence. The proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic or noise, because the proposed use will support the desired mixed-use character of the neighborhood. Oh, this is the exact same, yeah. And the proposed, per correspondence, the proposed use will be an asset to the neighborhood. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment, because the existing building was constructed for pedestrian accessibility and is not intended to change. Adequate public or private infrastructure and services already exist or would be provided at no additional cost, and will safeguard the health, safety, and general welfare of the public because the site is currently improved with public infrastructure, and the addition of alcohol sales will utilize existing sales area within the store. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability or economic welfare of the city because the use is not anticipated to result in nuisances that require code enforcement actions, and the use may encourage other investment in the area. Given the character, location, development trends, and other aspects of the neighborhood, it is demonstrated, is demonstrated that the proposed location for alcohol sales will demonstrably be an asset to the neighborhood because per correspondence, the proposed use is unique relative to other locations for packaged alcohol sales in the vicinity and per testimony by the applicant. The use or change in use as constructed and operated by the applicant is compatible with the neighborhood because a significant amount of support has been expressed for this new business. And adjacent or nearby parks, playgrounds, religious institutions, or schools will not be adversely affected because there are no such uses in close proximity to the site. And the use as proposed will be operated by the applicant, will not have any or minimal negative secondary effects on the neighborhood because the applicant has submitted a detailed operations management and security plan, and the use will operate in compliance with SEPTA requirements, and a number of letters of support have been received to date. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. 1, standard condition set A approvals, which I'll read, even though they're on the screen here. That the application and plans submitted by the applicant and signed, dated, and stamped by the planning director shall constitute the approved plans, except if plan elements do not meet ordinance requirements and are met in this resolution. That the use shall operate according to the application and per testimony as recorded in the planning commission minutes. that this approval does not include any proposed signs, and any future signs shall be subject to the requirements of Article 15 of the ordinance and permits received prior to installation, that a land use development services or LUDS permit, building permit, and all other required permits be obtained from the City of Grand Rapids prior to construction, demolition, or operation, that any expansion of the approved special land use requires an additional special land use review and approval by the Planning Commission, that the proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all state laws, and that this approval shall take effect 16 calendar days after the date of the Planning Commission's decision. 2, that the use shall operate in compliance with the SEPTED ordinance, and 3, that the use shall operate no later than 10 p.m. daily.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. Any final discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Our next case is 45 Lexington Ave Northwest. Elizabeth will walk us through this case.
Before we move on to 45 Lexington, I'd like to mention that 2555, 2617, and 2619 28th Street was noticed. We didn't send out postcards, but it did get the newspaper notice. That has subsequently been withdrawn from the agenda. So now we're on to 45 Lexington. This is a request for approval to renovate and expand the former Lexington School building and property into 39 affordable senior apartments. This is before you today because multiple family in the low-density residential zone district requires special land use approval. So this was the former Lexington School. And in 2012, GRPS, Grand Rapids Public Schools, agreed to sell the school property to Ojibwe Development, which proposed converting the school into apartments. They did get approval for that project, and as a part of that approval, they did agree to split the property into 2 parcels, one for the multiple family development, one for a public park. So as you can see on the screen here, that block where the school is does have 2 parcels, and at the northwest corner there is a public park, and the remainder is the school. Now, that project never came to fruition, and then we had another developer, Brinshore, come forward with a similar request, and that also didn't come to fruition. What did come to fruition is the public park. So we do have a small park, and that was actually just developed in 2020. And there's, a swing, there's a shelter, a grill. Apparently these are hammock, they call this a hammock grove. So you can hang out there in your hammock. So there is a public park on that block. So what is being proposed today is using the existing school building to house 23 apartments, and then a new building addition for an additional 16 apartments. This is consistent with the master plan recommendation about reuse of schools. The master plan, at that time, a lot of the, when we were doing the master plan 20 years ago, we did see a lot of schools being closed, and it was recommended as part of the master plan that priority be given to reusing those schools for office, educational, or residential uses. And we have seen some schools reused for charter schools, and we also have seen a similar development. The former Eastern School has become apartment units. The subject property is 1.17 acres. You can see the lot line here. So it says future city park, but that it's already been completed. The building is about 31,000 square feet, consists of 3 stories. As you can see here, 2.5, 3 stories, depending on where you are in the building. And there's a parking lot and former playground on the site. You can see the parking lot here to the north of the building, and then there was a gravel playground. Except for the addition, significant changes are not proposed for the building exterior, and that is consistent with the recommendation in the master plan, which does want to maintain those original building elements, particularly the building entrance. So that would be staying. There's a significant amount of transparency in this building as well as on the addition. As far as density goes, the permitted density is 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit, which would come out to 36 dwelling units. 39 dwelling units are proposed. However, because this is an affordable housing development, the affordable housing bonus can be utilized, and up to 72 dwelling units could be supported on this property. 39 are proposed, so that that is within the density permitted. Relative to, let's see, let me go to the site plan here. Relative to parking, as you can see, the parking lot is being expanded. Part of that was the existing parking lot, and then the parking lot is being expanded into that former playground area. That did need a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals, which was previously obtained. Was that last week? So the applicant has obtained the approval that they need from the BZA for the expansion of the parking lot in the front yard. One element that I do want to bring to your attention about the site is the trash enclosure and whether you find the location near the street to be appropriate. Generally, we would want to see it closer to the building, and if you find this appropriate, it can stay there. Otherwise, if you recommend a general area, staff can work with the applicant on a different location. Regarding landscaping, as you can see, the plan here is a conceptual plan, and it doesn't show details about landscaping. The parking lot will be required to meet all the landscaping requirements at permitting. Relative to neighborhood input, the applicant did submit a summary of neighborhood outreach efforts, and we have received no letters of objection, and the John Ball area neighbors has voiced no objection to the proposal. Okay. So in sum, we're looking at a reuse of a former school building for multiple family use in a low-density residential zone district. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Elizabeth, just a quick question on the trash enclosure. So
Yes.
is there a staff preferred location closer to the building of that?
We did not explore that with them. In general, we do want to see the trash enclosures closer to the building. I don't know all the details about the site design since this is a conceptual plan, but this space that I'm pointing out here might be appropriate. There's sort of, there's always this tension about where to put a trash enclosure. We want it close to the building, but depending on the building design, it's not always appropriate to have it up against the building. But then there's also, you know, at the edge here, that may impact the neighbors more. So that's what I can say.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, in regards to that that area where you pointed out as it might work, if I understand, that's underneath the new building. That's basically inside the parking enclosure.
Yes, that's correct. Let's see here. I'll go back to the, the addition will have ground floor parking and residential above. And I apologize for not saying that, indeed.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? All right, thank you. I'll invite the applicant up there and if there's other details.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm John Nesberg. I'm Vice President of Development with Commonwealth, and I'm really the lead on this project. I think Elizabeth did a great presentation for us there, so I don't have too much to add. I will add that it is a historic building, and we plan to rehab it and convert it to historic standards. So it'll be it'll look essentially like it did in 1915 when we're done with it. So it'll be it'll improve on the current appearance of the building. And Eric, I don't know if you want to.
Yes, I'm Eric Maring with Hookwood Young Architects Engineers, just the architect for the project. I don't have anything further to add, but we'll happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicants?
Yeah, I have one, or I have a couple, I guess, but related to the trash enclosure conversation, like, how are folks gonna, living in these apartments, gonna have to walk their trash all the way out there? Is there a trash chute that will be utilized? And then I guess my second question is, it seems like there are elevators planned in here, but I just want to confirm that that's the case.
Yes. And the enclosure will have a nice enclosure, I guess, to let it blend with the building. But typically, yes, residents will walk their own trash out. We do have 2 elevators in the building, one currently in the existing building, where the X mark is on there, and then another one kind of on the new construction at the, right there. So there's elevator there, so closer to where that trash enclosure is.
Right.
Yeah,
The northeast corner of the proposed addition?
right. You can see, I don't know if this, yeah, you can see this is kind of the area where that trash would be kind of an appendage to the building right there. So we'd use the same kind of materials to kind of make that blend in.
Great, thank you. I thought that's what those X's were, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have one question. Are the buildings connected? So,
Yep, they
Can you
will be
explain
connected.
that?
Yep, so they're,
I mean, one can go into either side and get to their unit,
correct.
depending on where they're coming in from. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks connected there, but then when you do the bird's eye view, it was a little, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. I'll open up the public hearing. If you're here today on this case at 45 Lexington Ave Northwest, I invite you to come forward and share your brief thoughts with us. Go ahead and come right up to the mic.
I'm John Showalter. I live at 42 Lexington in the old firehouse, and I just want to thank these guys for finally getting something done across the way. I know it's been a challenge for developers. I'm 74, and how do you define senior housing? 55 plus, okay. I don't know of it. Sometimes it goes downward, like that. So I thank you and for your little time, yeah.
All right, thanks. Anyone else? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any follow-up questions for the applicants? Do you have any recommendations, Kristen, on the enclosure? Or are there other things that you're thinking about?
Well, I'm wondering if it could be a combination of both. Perhaps there are some roll-offs that could be a little more conveniently placed underneath that maybe management has to take care of. Oh my goodness. I think on the north side, because there is that building addition and that north elevation is otherwise blank, I'm not sure having an appendage of a dumpster enclosure will be as perhaps as noticeable as it would be if it were just sitting in the parking lot in the front yard. So perhaps with some screening along that northern edge of the dumpster enclosure, I think that the impact would be minimal because there is that building addition being constructed. But I do, I appreciate that there are some elevators, goodness gracious, some elevators that are right there on the northeast corner, but it seems like for those that might live or reside on the first floor, having to walk through that parking structure in a senior complex is really not appropriate. Having recently visited my mom, in those same situations, I think having those convenience of the roll-offs right next to the first floor. So I'm wondering if they would be open to maybe doing a both and.
Yeah, I would say we have to evaluate it a little bit more, but I think there's a lot of flexibility to allow that. Or I don't see an issue with it. I don't think Eric does.
So I guess if Planning Commission is generally comfortable with the dumpster enclosure as it's located, perhaps some additional landscape screening on that northern edge would sufficiently lessen the impacts to neighbors that live on the other side of the street.
All right, any other discussion? Is someone willing to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Could I make a comment first, since we haven't done a lot of discussion? Just I want to point out that one of our considerations from the master plan is to not do big additions into open space. So I think we should make sure that we're comfortable with it in this case, and I think I am, because the city has maintained the park, and because the green space requirement is well exceeded, even with the addition, which is why I would support it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that too, and I'm excited also for the possibility that this project will come to fruition. Been hoping that something will happen with this school for a long time, so yeah, thanks for this.
All set? Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use request of Commonwealth Development Corporation to renovate and expand the former Lexington School building and property at 45 Lexington Avenue Northwest into 39 affordable senior apartments for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will increase the number and variety of housing units in the city. Reuse of the vacant school buildings for its residential purposes is recommended by the master plan. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of Section 5.12.08.e because the site will be brought into conformance with all site improvement provisions proportional to the extent of the redevelopment proposed. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment because One, the integrity of the former school building, including the exterior facade, entrances, and grounds, will be retained. The preservation of green space and the site's grounds assist in mitigating for the density of the proposed project. If applicable, the proposed use will support the desired future character of the neighborhood as demonstrated by neighborhood support. The proposed use will not have adverse effects on the neighborhood because adequate parking will be provided, alternative transportation is available nearby, buildings, structures, and entrances are appropriately oriented on the site, a vacant building will be returned to productive use. The proposed uses will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or visual clutter because appropriate landscape screening will be provided, less vehicular traffic is anticipated than would be typical due to the demographic population being served by the development. The proposed use would not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the building addition and other site improvements were designed to enhance the pedestrian scale and walkability of the existing building and site. The proposed development will retain as many natural features of the landscape as practical because this is a previously developed site and any alterations will have minimal additional impact on the environment. Landscaping improvements will enhance current conditions of the site. Adequate public or private infrastructure and services do already exist or would be provided at no additional cost because this is a previously developed site and the applicant will be responsible for the construction of any new infrastructure. The proposed use would not be detrimental to the financial stability and economic welfare of the city because the additional units contribute to the tax base. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to the project. That is standard condition set A approvals, which are on the screen. I do not need to read them, right?
Correct.
And do we want to add one about the screening of the trash receptacle enclosure? Additional landscape screening.
I drafted a condition for your consideration if you would like.
Oh, thank you. I would like that.
That the trash enclosure be constructed of brick matching the new addition and landscape screening be provided along the north side to sufficiently mitigate impacts of its placement in a front yard.
Well said, thank you.
All right, does that conclude your motion?
Yes.
All right, do we have support?
Support.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Our next case is 1661 Monroe Ave Northwest. Elizabeth will take us through this case.
And I think we're setting a record today. It's,
Careful.
okay.
Let's do it before we talk about it.
Okay. Please forgive me. So the last item on the agenda is a request for 1661 Monroe Avenue Northwest. This is an optional plan review request to exceed the maximum height permitted in the TCC Transitional City Center Zone District. The subject property is located on the west side of Monroe, adjacent to the Grand River. It's adjacent to TCC use, TCC zoning, TBA zoning, and LDR zoning. There's a range of uses surrounding it: commercial, low-density residential, industrial, and then some commercial uses in old industrial buildings. So the subject property is a historic building. It was a furniture Grand Rapids chair, I think. I think it shows in some later slides. And the site is almost all improved. It's almost all impervious. You can see the older building, the taller, older warehouse building, which is an L shape with a smaller appendage to the north. And then it's surrounded by a later addition from the 80s, which is a tall single-story building of about 20 feet in height. Oops. This slide shows the differences in the original building, which is the orange, and the light purple, which was the later addition. This slide shows the extent of the Grand River Overlay District, and the Grand River Overlay District is a district along the Grand River, and it's intended to capitalize on the river and preserve the river. It's intended to ensure that there are adequate view sheds, there's pedestrian walkways, and the like along the river. This is a slide that shows, I should mention that this is clearly prepared by the applicant. I did not do all this fancy work, but I will utilize it. So this is the original building on the site, Grand Rapids Chair Company. And here are some photos of the original building. And you can also see around it the tall addition, 20-foot high addition. The addition generally looks like what we see on the lower right of this slide. So the applicant is requesting an additional story, additional height over and above what would be allowed in this zone district for the purposes of Mean Company's proposal to occupy the warehouse portion of the building. They generally propose to use the existing warehouse building, but also are proposing to use I'm calling it an appendage, I don't really know what else to call it, this portion of the building that juts out to the north. That would also be used by Mean, and they propose to put a single-story addition. The addition would be about 7,000 square feet. The issue here is that the existing building already exceeds the maximum height in the zone district of 4 stories. The TCC zone district does allow additional height through bonuses, but bonuses would not be utilized for this particular project. As I mentioned previously, the warehouse portion of the building is, well, here it's showing 24 feet rather than 20 feet. So it's a tall single story. Based on our zoning ordinance, we do consider that 2 stories. The existing building is 5 stories already, and they're proposing to put this addition on the top. So from the exterior, you'll see the 3 existing stories, the tall single-story warehouse, plus the office addition of about 7,000 square feet. It is this 7,000 square foot addition that is the subject of the optional plan review today. As you may recall, the optional plan review is a process by which we can allow some flexibility to account for unique site conditions or other circumstances, while still meeting the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has provided some photos of what the building looks like today and what it might look like with the addition. And so this would be clearly from Monroe. Here are some additional slides showing from Monroe and from Ann. And this also shows, the river view, how it would appear from the river. And that might be something to keep in mind relative to the Grand River Overlay District, and if it will still meet the purpose and intent of the Grand River Overlay District. So today, you're really just looking at this addition. Any of the uses on the site will need to meet zoning requirements, as well as any other improvements on the site. The applicant will be able to tell you a little bit more about their use, as well as any other proposed future uses on the site. One last thing I'd like to mention is that the subject property isn't really part of any neighborhood association. The Creston Neighborhood Association ends at Monroe, and I did ask the applicant to reach out to Creston as a courtesy. Unfortunately, they were not able to coordinate so that the applicant could present at a meeting, but they did reach out to them. And as I mentioned, it really is not in the Creston Neighborhood Association. I just thought it would be a nice courtesy for them to let them know, because it could possibly impact them. I haven't received any correspondence or phone calls, either in support or opposition to this use. So in sum, we're looking at whether the request for an additional story of about 7,000 square feet would be appropriate on this building. Do you have any questions for me?
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Commissioners, any questions? All right, thank you. I'll have the applicant up if there's other details you want to share with us.
Sure. Hi, my name's Ben Franceschi. I'm here with my colleagues Evan Matheson and Matthew Schulte from Matheson Architects. Very excited to be working on this project. Pretty important part of Grand Rapids and of the future of the city, especially in its location proximate to the River for All Trail, kind of the gateway to Riverside Park and beyond. So quite a cool nexus in the city and the future of the city. Just wanted to mention that we have been in touch with Megan, the executive director of Creston, and as a continued courtesy, we will be meeting with them on October 6th for their scheduled land use meeting. In terms of use, Mean Company is an educational furniture company. So the proposed use here is really, they won't be manufacturing the furniture here. It'll be light assembly and shipping, and then their office space. This will be, they ship their furniture all over the world. So this will be their main headquarters, and they're very excited to be in the city and bring the economy, the vitality of this business to the city. It's very important to them. So this will be their world headquarters. And right now we're focusing, as you can see on this slide, on in the northern half of the property, right? So that dash line you see. And there's a lot of vision for this property, especially given what I was saying earlier and what we all know about the plans for the trail. So soon after the completion of this project, which they aim to move in March of 2023, our client will be collaborating with a development partner for the southern half of the property to add approximately 200 housing units, potentially retail, and of course, there's ample recreation opportunity here at the site. So Elizabeth, you did a good job of explaining the specific reason why we're here today, and I'll just add that we had been collaborating with Kristen and Andy Bowman a little bit early on, approaching this from the bonus height side of things, thanks. And, you know, working with them to, you know, interpret what has really been, you know, kind of an agglomeration of historic structures since the 1870s. And this warehouse space, you know, we worked with to consider as a first story. So we originally looked at that as a first story, seeking the additional story through the bonus height provisions in the zoning ordinance. And so the reason really why we're here today is to ask for the use of this internal level here shown in red, which would greatly add to the vitality of this business that is moving here and would be prohibitively expensive to remove to make consistent height with the warehouse. So we feel that this bonus height is in the spirit of the ordinance and of that ruling for this specific zone. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? None? Okay. All right, thank you. I'll open up the public hearing. If you're here today on this case at 1661 Monroe Ave Northwest, please come forward, state your name, and share your brief thoughts with us.
Hi, my name's Ty Lowing, and I live at 37 Travis, right across the street from this building. If you're right there in that picture, that's my house, right there. I live right there. And I've been there since I was 4 years old. I'm now 42. I live and work in Grand Rapids, and I've played around that building. My ma used to work there when it was Baker Furniture. And recently, for the last 2 months, this other building right next to it, Plastic Plate Incorporated at 1648 Monroe, has semi-trucks going at all hours of the night. I've called the cops every night for the last 2 months. I get woke up every night. I don't want no more business over there because it's going to make more trucks and you guys can't handle the ones you got now. And not only that, it's going to shade my house at 5 o'clock in the day. By putting it up that high, now my house ain't going to get no sun. My plants are going to die in my windows. That's all I really got to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this case? All right, I'll close the public hearing. I don't know if there's anything you want to add or respond to. Do you happen to know what the ordinance is on
7 to 10
loading?
noise ordinance.
There is the noise ordinance, but we would have to go back through the approvals for that particular location to understand whether there was any approvals granted for them to operate on different hours. So unfortunately, I can't answer that in this moment without doing more research. But we can certainly look into it, and if they're operating outside of either the city's noise ordinance or their approvals, then that's absolutely something we can enforce.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is it, which address? Could you repeat that for me? So I didn't write it down.
48 Monroe. Plastic Plate Incorporated, a subsidiary of Lax. I've called their corporate office and all their offices. Like I said, I've been at this for 2 months.
Yep.
It sucks when you can't sleep at night.
Yep, absolutely understood. I'm familiar. We've had much contact with them, given their recent renovation plans, so we can definitely look into that.
Okay. Do you have any idea of the operational plans of mine? I mean, do they have normal shipping hours? What the operations wise?
Yeah, the operations hours will be normal. They'll be really restricted to this side. Actually, I'm going to go to the next. Could you go to the next slide, please? Really restricted to this side here.
North side?
Correct. This is the north side, actually.
Plastic plate leases out the back corner of that building, and that's why the trucks are going through there all night long.
Through back this way?
They come, right around this corner, and they're going right back into this.
On the southwest side of the building.
So this area, which is a current loading dock, is going to be demolished to give these new residents access to the river. So all of this will be going away. So there will be no more truck traffic through here at all. It'll all be confined to this area.
You made my day.
Awesome.
Evan, could you step up to the?
Yeah, these are going away.
Speak into the microphone, it's really helpful for us recording the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have the mouse and I thought everybody could see it. Sorry. I'm talking about where you see the purple in the northeast corner, since north is down to the right. That is the new proposed loading dock area. Currently, where you see that kind of angled portion in the building, there are 3 loading docks that kind of work on a bias to Monroe. Those will be decommissioned and they'll now face due north. And we're also happy to provide a sun study. I don't expect that this additional height will create any future solar.
It will, because actually if you're driving across Ann Street Bridge right now and you look down here in this back corner, there's like 2 stories. You can see birds flying right in and out of. I don't know how you guys are ever going to make anything out of that building. You see it, I can see it on your other sides too. There's a big old open wall where there used to be a big yellow dust collector or something for the old.
Maybe you guys could discuss it after with the sun study. Sorry.
Yeah, and if the planning commission desires a sun study, then, I'd recommend we table the application. Given the location of this addition, of the 6th floor, it does not seem that would impede the sunlight of anything closer to Monroe, but that would be something that we could ask the architect to provide. But if it's material to your decision, then
I think the setback of it from the street, I'm comfortable with it, so I'm not too concerned about it. But if out of your courtesy you want to study that with the neighbor, I'd allow that. But other questions for the applicant from the commission?
I'm just wondering if the applicant wouldn't mind just defining normal business hours for the record.
We haven't discussed those times specifically with the owner, but I would imagine nothing past 6 o'clock p.m.
And what do you think the start time for that might be?
7. Again, I would have to come back. We haven't discussed those specific times with the owner.
You just seem pretty sure about normal, which is why I asked the question.
Yeah, we understand, just based on his current operation, that they don't have any unusual operating hours. Just a basic understanding of how they operate now on 3 Mile.
Thank you.
Yeah, based on the previous uses, this has been operating as an industrial building. Industrial buildings are exempt from the 24-hour requirement, which I think in part is why any new industrial building or use would require a special land use. However, this would have those non-conforming rights to continue with the operations. So I just wanted to make note of that, because I agree it could be potentially burdensome. However, they likely have use rights to operate beyond, I think, normal business hours being, the 8 to 6 concept.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, would someone be willing to make a motion?
I'll take a crack at it. Okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the optional plan review request of Mine Company, Remco Bergsma, to allow an addition to the existing building exceeding the maximum four-story height in the TNTCC Transitional City Center Zone District at 1661 Monroe Avenue Northwest for the following reasons. The project will meet the site plan review standards of section 5.12.08.E because the site will be developed so as not to impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of surrounding property for permitted uses. The development will be designed to meet all requirements of the zoning ordinance. The project will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed design will comply with all aspects of the zoning ordinance apart from the requested waiver for building height requirement. The proposed addition will not impede the extent to which the Grand River can be viewed or accessed. The location of the proposed height increase is related to the existing building and conditions on the site. The project will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and use of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and natural environment because the limited scope and scale of the proposed addition will not significantly change the character of the building or the neighborhood. The project will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood because the proposed height increase is limited to a small area of the building which is set back from both the street and the Grand River. The project will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or visual clutter because the floor area proposed by the addition will be negligible relative to the size of the existing building and will not increase the intensity of the use. The project would not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the proposed area of the additional height will have no effect on the remainder of the building architecture, particularly at the ground level. The project will not significantly modify the basic standards of the zone district to the extent that it adversely affects the established or future character of the neighborhood because the requested height increase is requested for only a small portion of the building and all other requirements of the zoning district will be met. Public or private infrastructure and services already exist and are adequate to support the proposed development. The project would not be detrimental to the financial stability and economic welfare of the city because the use will encourage other investment in the area. The addition will facilitate the viability and use of a long vacant building. The proposed project will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all applicable state laws. The request is necessitated by a condition related to the site or structure and is not a means to reduce costs or inconvenience because the site is already significantly built out and the location of the addition is adjacent to the warehouse portion of the building. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard set A is should be on the screen at this point, with the exception that Roman numeral 5 would not apply and has been stricken. And that's the extent of the motion.
Support.
All right, who made the support? Okay, thank you, Laurel. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, that motion passes. All right, I'll open up the public comment portion of the meeting. If you're here today and have anything you'd like to share with the commission, now's your chance. Please come forward. Okay, I'll close public comment. Commissioners or staff, anything else? Whoa. All right, then we're adjourned.